You're listening to the Mama Podcast, brought to you by Counselling Directory. We know pregnancy and parenthood can be full of joy, but also moments that feel overwhelming, heavy, or just hard to put into words. That's where Counselling Directory comes in. Since 2005, we've been helping people find the right professional support because no one should have to struggle alone. On the site, you'll find a nationwide network of qualified professional counsellors, all carefully verified so you can feel confident in your choice. You can search for someone local or connect online if that works better for you. It's simple, secure, and completely free to browse and get in touch. Your mental health matters, and support is always within reach. Take that first step today at counsellingdirectory.org.uk. This week on the Mama Podcast, Heidi sits down with the worst girl gang ever to talk about pregnancy loss, what it feels like, how isolating it can be, and why talking about it matters so much. We talk about what inspired the worst girl gangs ever's creation, as well as touching on something very special happening in the future between the worst girl gang ever and Mama Academy. So sit back and enjoy a frank discussion about grief, resilience, and connection. And we hope it helps anyone going through something similar feel a little less alone. If you've been affected by any of the issues raised in today's episode, resources are available in the description.
So welcome to this episode of the Mama Podcast. I'm your host, Heidi Eldridge, the founder and CEO of Mama Academy. And here we are with the fabulous Laura and Bex from the Worst Girl Gang Ever. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love you guys just to introduce yourself to our listeners so everybody knows who you are, what your setup is at home, and whereabouts you are in the country.
Sure.
Who's going to go first?
Yeah. Well, I usually go first, but only because I never really let Laura get a word in edgeways. So we'll just carry on with that. I'm Bex. I am in Sussex. Do you mean my setup at home, like my family?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have 4 kids, ranging. My eldest is 14. My youngest is just 4. I'm a single mum, so it's quite a busy setup, and I'm obviously one half of the Worst Girl Gang Ever.
And I am Laura, based in Gravesend in Kent. I have got 3 little boys, aged 6, 2, and 8, 9 months, something like that. I'm one half of the Worst Girl Gang Ever, and I've recently taken on a new role. So I was a nurse before, and I'm still a nurse now, but I have a new job as the bereavement nurse in the early pregnancy unit.
Gosh, that sounds extremely busy. So you've got your job, you've got the kids, and now you're obviously running this brilliant organization. So for our listeners that are new to your work, can you tell us how the Worst Girl Gang Ever began?
Yeah, sure. So back in 2020, in May 2020, in March 2020, I found out I was pregnant, and I found out literally about a week before we went into lockdown. So because it was my 4th child, I was quite blasé about it all, and lockdown didn't really faze me. I was just excited, to be honest, and I had always struggled with fertility in that I never got periods. When I was young, I had like my first period, and then I had maybe like 5 or 6 natural periods. And then when I had my first child, I basically stumbled across fertility acupuncture. So I had a couple of rounds of acupuncture, literally 2 rounds of acupuncture, and then I found out I was pregnant with my son, who's now 14. And then my husband and I decided that we wanted like 2 2 years-ish between kids. And all the medical professionals I'd seen, during these years of not having periods were like, oh, the best chance you've got, I had operations to try and find out, because they thought it was PCOS, but it wasn't, didn't have any of the symptoms. I had operations to try and find out what was happening. And none of the sort of medical experts could really pinpoint what was wrong. So I remember the doctor saying to me, well, do you want children now? And I was about 16 at the time. And I was like, no. And they said, well, when you want a baby, try for a year. And if you can't, had no luck, then come back to us. So I felt really fobbed off by the medical profession. Anyway, I didn't have a period for a year after I had my son. So I went back and had acupuncture. And again, 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And then she was born. And I never had any problems. And then again, I had acupuncture before my third baby. And the irony is that the only baby I didn't have acupuncture before was the baby that I lost. So I went to my 12-week scan. And as I said, I was very just like, oh, I was late. I'm late everywhere. I was late. I just had my like notes, my pack, my Mama Academy pack. And that was it. And I was running in and I was flustered, and it was COVID. So my husband and our youngest child were waiting in the car. And I went in, and I just remember she said to me, is this your first? And I said, no, it's my fourth. And she went, oh, you're an expert then. And like, we had a good old laugh. And I lay down, and it was really hot and it was dark. And she started scanning me. And I was looking at the screen. And because, I've been there 3 times before, I knew almost immediately that something wasn't right. And where I'd seen that amazingly intricate scan before of the bones and the spine and all that, there was just a white space. And I remember a lady happened to come into the room, and the sonographer talked to her, and she just turned, and she had sort of mask on and gloves and aprons and all that really stuff that we associate with COVID. And she just said, I'm so sorry, there's no heartbeat. And following that, I just could not believe how painful I found the experience, how, it wasn't a heavy period like I thought it was going to be. It wasn't, it was totally devastating. Like, I felt totally devastated. And people were saying things like, at least you've got kids, at least, you know that, you can still have a baby, and all of this stuff. And it was just like, it was so shit. And the worst thing about it was that I've been through a bit in my life, and I am quite resilient. And I really remember just thinking, I know that I'll be all right, but if this happens, this is happening every day to people who don't have the same resilience as I do. Like, what is it doing to them if it's having this much impact on me? So I just basically wrote down everything, start to finish. I wrote down all of it, all the brutal, like, physical aspects of it, all the real, like, head fucker. Oh, are we allowed to swear?
You have.
All the, like, the real difficult stuff to get your head around, like having to wait 3 weeks in a pregnancy test. And in my case, it was still positive, and I was phoning them, and all of that. Just, you pray for a positive pregnancy test, and then you suddenly see one and it's positive, and you don't want it to be positive. And even that is just such a mind bender. And you have to kind of try and work through it. And for me, the physical aspect was really drawn out. So by the time I came to inspecting like what was going on for me emotionally, everyone else had moved on. Like, that's how it felt to me. Everyone else was like, oh, these things happen, and quite blasé about it. And I wasn't. I was stuck in this grief. So anyway, long story short, it's been a long story so far, but I'm going to cut it short now, is that I decided to change. I decided that I wanted to change the way that things looked, and I didn't want to do it by myself. And I created a Facebook support group, and then I met Laura.
And my story is a little different to Bex's, but I can tell it a little bit more concisely. So at the time of meeting Bex, I found her. My sister-in-law said to me, "Oh, check out this group." So I went on this Facebook group and followed along, and then I saw Bex having this passionate rant on a Facebook Live in her garden, and she was ranting about how rubbish the support is for people going through this, how taboo the subject is, how difficult it is to find support if it's out there. And I was in total agreement. And so that's what prompted me to get in touch with her. But at that time, my eldest son was about a year old, and I found myself in this weird space where I was out the other side of the rubbish stuff. So before him, I had 7 miscarriages, 7 losses, including a molar pregnancy, an ectopic pregnancy. I had a tube removed. I had they described my uterus as a patchwork ute, because I'd had so many procedures. I had a heart-shaped womb that was repaired. I'd seen 4 different recurrent miscarriage specialists, had endless amounts of tests, tried all the different medications, even the stuff that they were, experimenting with in America, and I was buying stuff off the internet. I just wanted to find something to help me stop losing babies. And having been through such a journey, I knew that I wanted to help the people who were still on the other side. But I was in this weird position where I had my happy ending, right? And I know that when I was the other side, when I was going through it, I didn't want to hear from people like me, because I think, oh, great, that's good for you. Well done. It's easy for you to talk about it because you're out the other side. You've got the thing that we all want. And having, coming from a healthcare background as well, I worried about those people who didn't have the knowledge or the nous about them to go and do the research and to fight for those appointments or to question the health professionals. So yeah, I wanted to support people but didn't know how. And then I saw Bex having this passionate rant on her Facebook Live and got in touch, and that's when Girl Gang began, really. And after that, I went on to have another 5 losses before I had my second son. And then my third son, we hadn't planned on having any more. And I didn't think I could have them without the use of like real heavy duty medication and lots of testing and monitoring and trying. And then all of a sudden, I was then one of those people that I hated who had a surprise pregnancy. And that was quite difficult to deal with as well, especially because at that point we'd created this wonderful community and I didn't feel like I could tell them about it or share it with them. So yeah, Girl Gang started with a podcast. We hit play on our first ever podcast on the 17th of July 2020, and then things have snowballed since then.
Wow, your stories are just absolutely incredible. And I want to commend you for all the work that you're doing. You're pouring all of your passion and your energy and your own experiences into serving others, which is just so wonderful. And you guys are making such a difference. So what, inspired you both to start off the podcasts in the first place?
I think that it was, well, like I said, we've both kind of touched on it, but our experiences were so different, and mine personally was so shit because I didn't know what to do. When I had the miscarriage, I didn't know what to do, and I felt so alone. And the only comfort I got was from talking to a couple of friends who'd had a miscarriage, and then I felt able to be like, God, this is rubbish. Like, what do you do? What's going to happen to me? All of this stuff that I didn't, I got a flimsy bit of paper from the hospital, which said nothing on the emotional side of things. So these people sort of became a lifeline in my world because I knew that they'd had miscarriages. And then I kind of thought, well, there's nothing different about me. Like, if I feel like this, other people must feel like this as well. I knew statistically that 1 in 4 pregnancies ended in loss. And as I said earlier, like, I'm quite a resilient person. So I didn't have any real fear for my own well-being. I knew that it was very painful, but I'd be okay. But I was thinking, if people are less like that, or don't have or in a different situation and they don't have the ability to search around for other people. Like I felt really sure that I wanted to be able to make the experience slightly less shit for the next person that comes along, however that looked. And then Laura had the idea of doing a podcast because we were right in the depths of COVID by that point, and like everyone was started listening to podcasts, and Laura was like, well, it's an experience that no one talks about, so why don't we talk about it? So that's why we started doing it. But we genuinely didn't think that anyone would listen. We genuinely thought it would just be like our mums and our best mates. And we bought a book called Podcasting for Dummies, and and we were like leaving voice notes to each other like 1 o'clock in the morning, hiding in the bathroom from our husbands, trying to keep our relationship on the down low because everyone was getting cross because we spent so much time talking to each other. And then we put, and pretty soon the podcast was, getting 100 downloads a week, and we were like, whoa, this is insane. And now we have like just over 15,000 downloads a month. So it's just crazy how needed what we've got to say is. And I think the beauty of what we do is that we've done it from like, we're both quite down to earth, we're both quite ballsy, I suppose. And actually, I think that's what lands with a lot of people, because there are no frills, there's no lilac, there's no feathers. It's just like, do you know what? This is really rubbish, guys, and we're going to face it together. And yeah, it's a gang that you would never, ever choose to be a part of, but it is full of incredible warrior women who are still women. We're all still women. We have these life experiences and we can experience joy, but in our gang, we don't feel guilty about that joy, because we know that the people who are surrounding us understand that just because we smile doesn't mean we're over it.
Yeah, it's so powerful not to feel alone, isn't it? And to walk alongside someone when you're going through that journey. That is so invaluable. So what do you think really helped you most in the early days of grief? What do you wish could have been different, if you like, as well, in terms of the care and support that you received?
Well, I mean, for me, without a doubt, the worst part of it was feeling so isolated. And it's so difficult when you're going through all of this, and everyone has their go-to support networks, right? Everyone has their cousin, their mum, their best friends, their sisters, the people that they usually rely on for support in any aspect of their life. But when it comes to this, it's really difficult to get the right support, even from the people who love you the most. Often, if they haven't been through it themselves, they don't really get it. And human nature is to try to make people feel better. And with that comes all of the toxic positivity. You hear from people all the time that, at least you can get pregnant, was one that was said to me a lot. And I'd be like, I've had 6 miscarriages at this point. How does it help that I can get pregnant? Because I still don't have a baby. And when you get this toxic positivity from people and you feel misunderstood by those around you, it silences you and you withdraw and you stop going to events, you stop hanging out with your friends. I used to say yes to lots of things because that was what I used to be like. I used to be the life and soul and go to every event going. And then I just get to getting ready and I think I just can't face it. And to begin with, you'd put on your game face and you'd go, and it would make you feel worse. So eventually I just stopped going to things. I was at one point living this life of going to work, going to bed, and there was nothing in between. So yeah, the isolation, without a doubt, was the worst. And I've forgotten what the question was that you actually asked, but
you just answered it. It was, what was the worst thing about your grief?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with
go on.
Sorry, with that, the like Bex, the only comfort I found was talking to people who got it. but I didn't really find those people in real life. At one point, I remember after my 7th loss, I took to this group on Facebook and I just wrote down everything that all my losses, all the testing, all the treatments that we'd tried, and was just like, look guys, I'm going to give up because I can't keep going through this. Is there anything that I'm missing here? And I got a few words of advice back, some things to try, some specialists to try and things like that. But what I got back more overwhelmingly was, oh my God, I get it. I'm so sorry. This is really shit. I'm going through this too. And this was this American Facebook group of strangers on the internet, none of them whom I've ever met, but they're the people who got me out of bed and got me going again.
How powerful is that? And
Mm.
that's the power of technology, isn't it? When you can all connect and again just say, I'm really sorry and I'm here for you. You know, I'm here to listen. That's amazing. What are the most common things that you find people say that they struggle with?
Oh, it's the uglies, isn't it?
Ugly feelings, yeah, 100%. So the ugly feelings are it's how we describe feelings that you don't necessarily expect. Like I think
Or want.
Yeah, you experience like sadness and grief, and everyone kind of understands that, they're on board with that. But the ugly feelings, kind of the ones that are almost secondary and they come out of nowhere, and it's the stuff like hatred, bitterness, anger, resentment, shame, guilt, you know, that you feel like particularly towards other people, but towards yourself as well. And then we call it the never-ending cycle of shit. Like you see a pregnancy announcement, you feel like shit, you hate them, and then you beat yourself up because you're like, oh my God, who am I? How can I feel so like they've just announced the pregnancy and that's really good news for them, and I don't know what they've been through to get there, but what am I? Am I a horrible person? And what that is by far and away the biggest thing that people cope with. I mean, Laura went to counselling.
I went to therapy. And I sat down and this woman said, you know, can you tell me what it is that you're struggling with at the moment? And I was like, I hate my sister-in-law and I want you to help me not hate her. And she was like, okay, rewind, let's go back, let's talk about this a bit more. But I mean, I didn't understand these feelings, right? I didn't, and I thought I was a horrible person. It never occurred to me that these were natural feelings to have. And you know, I hated her at the time. I couldn't even look at her because she was pregnant and I just had my 3rd miscarriage at the time, and it should have been me. You know, I'm the eldest sibling, and I'd already been pregnant 3 times, and I just couldn't deal with it. I couldn't engage with her pregnancy, and I love my niece and nephew very much now. At the time, I couldn't deal with it, so much so that I am not a therapy person, but I took myself there to try and be like fixed. And actually what the therapist should have said to me, instead of saying you need to go and deal with your grief, what they should have said is, this is natural, of course you're going to feel like this, cut yourself some slack, give yourself grace.
Absolutely.
I think like another part of the difficulty in talking about these experiences, and certainly something I felt, was like this huge fear of judgment, and people seem to like rate their grief like, I'm not entitled to this grief because XYZ. So I felt like my loss was considered early and I felt like I wasn't entitled to that grief, or because I only had like 1 miscarriage, but because I had children already, or all of that stuff. And I remember I had quite a different experience in therapy, because I went to see my therapist and I said, I've had a miscarriage, it was only early. And she's like, whoa, you know, you lost a baby, Bex, that's massive. And she really validated my grief and made me feel like it was okay to be really upset. So I took that as well and carried that forward. And everyone has their own experience of loss, and whether that's a chemical pregnancy, a TFMR, a later loss, whatever your experience of loss is, that grief is so valid because it's in your life. and the experiences are so different, but you can't compare them. No one person is more entitled to grief and healing than another, despite what the differences in experience. It just doesn't make sense to be comparing ourselves all the time. And that's also why I wanted to share a lot about what I've been through, because I really feel like when people see that and hear that and identify with that experience in someone else, it gives them a little bit of courage to be like, oh, okay, well, she's talking about it, then maybe I could try talking about it. And it is, I think there's this real misconception that talking about miscarriages and loss and infertility is attention seeking. And personally, I have a huge problem with the term attention seeking, because why wouldn't you be able to seek attention for that horrendous experience? And secondly, if you view the term attention seeking as a negative, that's something really sad, because we're all entitled to have support and love when we go through really hard times in life. And I think it's mad to be labeling people as attention seekers when it's such a brutal and horrific experience.
Absolutely. Gosh, all these feelings and memories are all flooding back to me now. You've brought me right back to what I remember when I first lost my son. And I remember my mum saying to me, oh, just to let you know, your sister might get pregnant soon. Like, oh my gosh, like that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my gosh, how on earth would I cope with that? And then you do feel like such a terrible person, because you think, well, everyone's got to move on with their lives, that the whole world isn't going to stop just because of what's happening to me. But like you say, being able to share these feelings and thoughts with other people and realize that they're completely valid and they're completely normal, everybody has them. And you're right, I think we do put so much on ourselves, don't we, where our feelings aren't valid and we don't matter, and we have to almost put like a stiff upper lip because we're British and we need to get on with it. So talking about it is so important. I'm just thinking about the dads as well. How do you get them involved in the conversations?
Well, I mean, usually through the girls, right? So as I mean, we all know, generally speaking, men don't talk about their feelings as women do, and I feel quite sorry for them that they don't have those relationships and those friendships where they can talk about emotional, heavy stuff. It's all sort of so light-hearted, a pat on the back, go for a beer, sorry mate, cheers, crack on, let's go play pool. It's really difficult, and we are the worst girl gang ever, but we do support the partners as well. The support looks quite different. It needs to look quite different, because we found that one of the things that men struggle with the most is knowing how to support their partner. Like, that's their role in this, or they feel like that's their role in this. They need to crack on with their own thoughts and feelings, put them to one side and focus on the partner in the situation, their other half, the one who was pregnant. And so yeah, it's difficult because they feel so powerless, and they don't really know how to do it. And there's no one size fits all thing. We can't say to people, this is how you need to support your partner, because it depends on their relationship, it depends on the person themselves. Yeah, it's tricky. We're working on our male support at the moment. Actually, we're hoping to launch it by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think it's also like it whether you're in a heterosexual couple or same-sex couple, the non-pregnant partner, it is often like hugely traumatic. The experience is hugely traumatic for them, because they're seeing the person they love in loads of pain. There's often like, loads of blood, and that all gets put aside. Often we hear that gets put aside as soon as it's over, because everyone's focused on the person who is physically pregnant, whereas this other person is like, I don't know how to support her, and I have all these memories of like this traumatic experience, and I don't know what to do. And then these kind of rifts in a relationship can often appear when the people are grieving differently, and the one person's like, oh, you haven't cried, and that's why are you going to the gym, why are you going back to work? And then the other person's like, oh god, I need a break because this is too much for me all the time. So what we try and do at the Girl Gang is we've got loads of resources for relationships. So we have relationship advice for couples on how to communicate and how to articulate their lost story to each other so that they can get on the same page, because often the relationship a couple have can be like have a real bashing after loss, especially when the trying to conceive process starts again. If it starts again, is that there's this real sort of gap where, you know, where the togetherness may be fractured, and that's what we aim to do, is to help each person in the couple understand, so that they can be more forgiving and understanding to the different grief processes, which is super important. And again, something that you wouldn't even think about.
No, wow, that sounds amazing. I could have done with that.
We
That
cover
sounds
sex
fantastic.
as well, don't we? We talk,
Yeah.
let's talk about sex, baby. But you know, we hear from people that the whole trying to conceive process, you know, it's hard. That regimented, scheduled sex, and you know, any romance goes out the window. And we've heard from women who are trying to conceive again and breaking down in tears. Yeah,
Like during sex. Yeah,
it's really hard.
and also, like, you know, when you have an argument with your partner but you know it's the fertile window, you're like, oh, I'm so mad at you, but we have to make up because we need to have sex tonight. Like, all of that stuff, it's so unhealthy for a relationship. And actually from the non-pregnant partner side as well, they can often feel like they're just a service tool, you know. It's and there's this like message
Sperm
around
donor.
sperm donor, yeah, and there's this message around like, oh, lucky him, all he has to do is, because it's this historical thing about how men view sex, right? But I don't think it's always the case. So we're always like, oh, lucky him, all he gets his end away every night for 5 days and he's complaining about it, blah 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 blah. But actually loads and loads of men love the sort of the more romantic side of it. So but we've used that stereotypical, I think a lot of us women, myself included in the past, have used that stereotypical, oh, whoa, you know, that shit, and then run with it. And it's not, I just don't think it's the case anymore. And I think we need to look at both sides of that difficulty in the trying to conceive window.
No, it's so true, because this isn't a temporary thing, is it? This is
Yeah.
going on and on and on and on. It's really, really difficult. So your resources sound absolutely fabulous. What other support and services have you got? Because I know you've just got a new fabulous website that you've just launched.
We have, and all of those resources that we've spoken about, plus lots more, are all available on the website for free. But we also have a, what do we call it? It's called the Warriorship.
What are you talking about? Oh, yeah.
It used to be like a paid membership platform, but we've managed to open the doors to that. So that is free and accessible to all. You do need to...
Oh, sorry, can I just pop in there? Because basically we just got our charitable status. So from the word go, this was so popular so early that Laura and I had to both really cut back on our day jobs. So we had to make money through what we were doing in order to do what we were doing. So we created this pay for membership, but it never sat well with us. We hated the fact that we were having to charge people to give them the support that we think should be free. And that's why we started. We started because we wanted to support people. So basically we worked behind the scenes, and there was a lot of hoops to jump through. And then a year ago, we got our charitable status. So with that, we wanted to raise money to make sure that we could give everything that we were charging for away for free. So we launched some fundraising campaigns earlier in the year, and we were lucky enough to get a grant from the National Lottery. And we've just been working harder than I think we've ever worked before in our lives. And then we reached a point it was June the 19th, where we were able to take all the paywalls off this year. So like literally a couple of weeks ago, able to take all the paywalls off our membership, so that everyone, wherever they are in the world, can access everything that we've ever done for free. So that's where we are, which is like a massively, like 5 years of hard graft.
Yeah, huge congratulations for that, guys, because that's amazing. That must have been a huge milestone and goal that you really wanted to achieve, and you've done it.
Yeah.
It really was, wasn't it? Anyway, Laura, as you were, sorry.
Well, the membership, so it's behind, it's in a separate area, so people still have to log in, so it's nice and safe.
Okay.
And within there we have topic specific WhatsApp groups and WhatsApp community. We host live drop-in sessions once a week. We also host, twice a week, yeah. We also host live webinars once a month, like information-based webinars, and creative therapy type sessions, ranging from, we have wreath making at Christmas, we have paint club twice a year, poetry workshops, that kind of thing. And then also, before we set up the membership platform a few years ago, we started running courses because we found that people needed more support. And again, we used to charge for that, but now they are free as well. So yeah, it's our support is focused on peer-to-peer support. Like that's where it's where what helped us with our healing more than anything else was chatting to people who got it. So we've created this safe space for other people to be able to do the same.
And with our courses, so we just ran our first TFMR, which is termination for medical reasons course. So everyone who was in the course specifically had that experience. So they then formed, like, we had a WhatsApp group with just the course members in, and they all talked about their experience and got that peer-to-peer support. And then there was weekly sessions like drop in on them, plus loads of emails. And the resources that we send in the emails are kind of available in bits and bobs in other places on the website, but just being able to like almost hold people's hands and have like a day-by-day approach to this recovery process has been, we got sent a photo last week of a course that we had over a year ago, and they'd all met up in London last weekend, and we got a photo of all these lovely beaming faces of just like,
lovely.
They've all stayed in touch. And yeah, we get a lot. And even people, I think the first in real life meetup between two people who were part of the Worst Girl Gang Ever was actually in Canada. The first that met up in real life were in Canada, and we got a photo of them together. And it's just like, I mean, that is absolutely, it's such, I will get emotional. It's such a privilege to be able to offer like a tiny flicker of light during such a dark experience in someone's life. Is just more than I could ever, like, more fulfillment than I could ever wish for.
And tell me about the book that you've got.
Yeah, so we were.
And you remember the name of it, Bex? Bex always forgets the name. It's called, funnily enough, it's called The Worst Girl Gang Ever.
But it's, I haven't got a copy. It's now a survival guide for navigating miscarriage and pregnancy loss.
Yes, well done. Gold star.
Wonderful.
So it was published in 2022 by HarperCollins. And then it came out as a soft cover, whatever you call it. Is it soft cover?
Paperback.
Paperback.
Paperback following year. So it's available like Waterstones and Amazon and all of the cool places. And that's
it's also going to be available in every library in the UK soon.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Last week we found out that we'd made this Reading Well for Families shortlist of their 22 best books for whatever. It's like an 18-month process.
Not for whatever. It's for people who are navigating pregnancy and postpartum, right? And isn't it the focus on mental health?
Yeah. What Laura said.
Well,
and
congratulations on making not whatever, but congratulations on making that list, because that sounds great. So I guess very soon people can just walk into their local library and pick up a copy of your book to hire.
Yeah. It's already in my local library. It's like front and center. I didn't even know it was there, and I walked in and I was like, oh my God, that's our book.
That's
amazing.
I said
it very loudly so lots of people could hear.
There's
Oh,
also,
look, I wrote this book here.
There's also an audio book which we recorded on a very, very hot week in like the 5th floor of a townhouse in Brighton, and it was in the roof and it was really, really hot, and I had a cold, and I thought they were going to somehow edit it so that I didn't sound so nasally, but they didn't. So if you get the audio book, apologies.
And they couldn't have air conditioning on because it was so noisy, and then I was supposed to read the word genitalia, in the context of masturbation, and I couldn't stop laughing. So they sent me out of the room like a school child. I was sent
Oh my
to record a
gosh.
video, and Laura had to take over.
But
So
I could still hear her giggling on the other side of the door. She could not keep her shit together.
Well, then you're probably laughing at the whole scenario in the back.
Yeah, it was really funny. So when you listen, if you listen to our book, listen to the bit about masturbation, and
And then
you'll know
picture
what
you
Say
doing the walk of
genitalia
shame.
in my nasally voice. Imagine Bex behind the door cackling like a naughty schoolgirl.
Oh, dear.
Well, that sounds incredible that you've managed to write a book as well as everything else you're doing, ladies. So well done.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
A proper girl gang. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
big time.
Absolutely love
Yeah.
it. Shall we give our listeners a little teaser about our upcoming I Wish I'd Known campaign? Should we tell
Oh,
them a little bit about it?
I feel like we should.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Shall we? Well, it's just to say that coming soon, we are going to launch a I Wish I'd Known campaign to help raise awareness of basically what people wish they had known, either before they got pregnant or during they got pregnant, and part of the support that they received. And there's going to be lots of information on our website, and we're coming together just to let people share their experiences, really to raise awareness, because it's so powerful when you empower others. And on the back of that, we're then going to be fundraising for our wellbeing wallets, which empower parents through pregnancy. They give them all the information that they should need. And you guys are going to be featured within that as well. So I'm really excited because we've been talking a lot about what you wish you'd known and what had helped you. So I think it's going to be really powerful. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, watch this space.
Yeah, us too.
Watch this space. Yes, we'd like as many people to get involved in that as possible. So I'm just thinking about sort of winding up and thinking about what your message would be to sort of the healthcare professionals, like the midwives and clinicians who are listening to this today. How could they better support bereaved families?
Well, I would say, on the whole, I think they do an amazing job, and I think it's very easy to NHS bash, and I don't want to do that at all. I think the NHS is a completely incredible service, and I think that the healthcare professionals are so often under the cosh in terms of time and what they can and can't do. But I think what I would say that is easy and doesn't take any time is to acknowledge the patient as a person before they acknowledge them as a patient. So instead of using clinical language and, maybe a hug and how are you doing, before you start with anything else, anything like information based or clinical. And I think the other thing which would have really helped me at the time was to reflect the language used by whoever you're seeing. So for example, when I lost my baby, there was a specimen pot held up. I won't go into it obviously, but it was a long procedure, and at the end the doctor just held up this pot, and I said, "Is that my baby?" And they said, "This is the products of conception." And I didn't understand what they were saying, and I think there's just this big thing around, we choose our language really carefully when we're talking about our baby and our experience. That is something that we've done with purpose. So when other people reflect that language back to us, it makes us feel understood and validated. So that I think would have been a really important thing for me.
I feel like this is a weird one for me to answer because I'm now one of those people.
Yeah, of course.
I guess, I agree with Bex wholeheartedly about the treating them as a human before treating them as a patient. Definitely. And that's something that I am working with my team to do. They're all wonderful. They are all very passionate about supporting these women. But when you do this job day in, day out, I think that it's normal for you. And what we have to remember and be reminded of is that it's not normal for that person. Their world has literally been blown apart. There was something else that I was going to say, but it has slipped my mind. Where was I
Well,
going?
this might prompt it. I was just going to say, finally, what do you wish you'd known, whether as grieving parents or as advocates for your community?
I wish that I had known sooner in my journey that I can advocate for myself. I wish I hadn't just gone along with the process, go through the motions, do what I'm told to do, because the NHS is wonderful, but the extent of the testing that they can do is limited, and there's lots more out there. And it had I not gone outside the NHS, I wouldn't have got my answers, got my treatment, and got my babies ultimately. But asking the questions and finding out what, where the limits are, where the boundaries are with treatments and testing, because unless you ask these questions, you don't get the answers, right? You don't know what you don't know about.
Yeah, I'm always saying that.
So the best source of information, I think, is the other people that have gone through it, and talking to them and finding out what they've done.
I wish that I'd known that the biggest supporters I have in my life weren't necessarily going to be the people to go to with this, because I feel like I sort of drifted away from some people who I was really close with in my life because I expected them to be able to be there for me, and they weren't. And that's not their fault, but I saw it as their fault at the time. They just didn't have the capacity to understand my experience. Whereas if I had known that was the case, I could have still had those people for other stuff, and then been able to seek out people that knew what I was going through. So kind of similar to Laura, but with a different way.
That's really powerful. Thank you. The episode before this one is all about advocacy.
Great.
So yeah, I'm a huge believer of advocacy and empowerment and knowing as much information as possible. And that's what you guys and our guys are working on as well, aren't we? To deliver as much information as we can in the early stages, so that parents know about as much as they can beforehand. Because like you said, Laura, you don't know what you don't know until you need to know it. So yeah, this podcast has been absolutely fantastic. I've really, really enjoyed chatting to you. I could chat to you ladies all day because you're a breadth of knowledge, and yeah, what you're doing with the Worst Girl Gang Ever is just fantastic. So I'm really, really excited to see what you guys are gonna get up to in the future, because you've achieved so much in such a small amount of time.
Well, thank you for doing what you do as well, Heidi. It's incredible. And yeah, I think that we've got to keep fighting because we're strong enough, and some people aren't able to be, for whatever reason. They're not able to. So I think that if we can do it, then we can do it for other people, and all of us are doing that in this community in one way or another. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's so timely. I was speaking to a parent the other day, actually, just randomly at my son's school. He's going through something similar at the moment, and he's not getting anywhere with the policymakers. Unfortunately, he sent several letters to the heads of NHS England, and he's in his grief, so he's given up. But I said, give it to me. Give it to me, and I'll be your advocate. I will take the challenge on. I will do it whilst you concentrate on healing. Let me take on the fight. And yeah, I just see that as my purpose for this chapter at the moment. So I will continue to do that. But I'm really looking forward to working with you guys even more. I think it's going to be really exciting and really impactful for other families. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank
having us.
you. Have a lovely weekend.
You too.
If you enjoyed listening to this episode, share it with a friend or colleague. Make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on our next episode. If you'd like to support our work by fundraising or volunteering, please email contact@mamaacademy.org.uk. For more information on pregnancy and maternity services, please visit our website at www.mamaacademy.org.uk. We're also on all of your favourite social media channels. See you next time!